You don't want to rock.
Dan Kaysen has had a guitar in his hand since he was 5 years old. Now, at the age of 72, when he starts playing, you can still see the spark of who he was in his youth. As a young man, his talent took him to stages across the country and even put him on national TV a few times in the 70s. His guitar, he told us, was once his ticket to the world. Now it brings him an escape.
You're in a lot of pain. You're dealing with all these things that are going on. What kind of a difference does it make to pick up the guitar and play?
Oh, it puts me in another world.
His world now is confined mostly to this small apartment in Florida, not far from his family. He's battling terminal cancer and receiving hospice care at home.
It's my choice that I can either be grumpy and bad and screaming and blame the world, or I can be content and be happy, and I'm doing my best. It's hard. I got a lot of cancers.
Kaysen told us he's been diagnosed with several types of cancer, and he traces the roots of his illness back to the turn his life took when he gave up music. In 1975, Kaysen, the young man you see in this photograph, joined the Air Force as a firefighter working in crash rescue. It's a dangerous job, one that he says sent him running again and again into burning airplanes, as his fellow firefighters doused the flames with gallons and gallons of a substance known as AFFF, aqueous film-forming foam. It's a fire suppressant created specifically for the military, for this kind of job.
We asked her, what is this spray, this foam, when we first started. All of us did in our class, and we were all told, it's just soap suds. That's all it is soap suds. And that's what they told firefighters for years. For years.
That was nearly 50 years ago, but we now know AFFF is more than soap suds. It contains a toxic set of man-made chemicals known as PFAS. Studies show these chemicals have a link to cancer and other health problems. But the military admits it continues to use this hazardous foam, many years after learning about the potential risks to people like Dan Kaysen, who started speaking out after making the connection between his own cancer and the PFAS exposure he received on the job.
Why is it so important?
Because they lied to us. They lied to every firefighter.
Are you angry?
No, I'm not angry. I'm disgusted. It's disgusted. Many, many moons ago, they knew.
What would you say to the leadership in the military that are not acknowledging this problem and that it's made people sick?
You're a fool. You're a fool. And anyone who denies this, you're a fool. Because it's real. I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one.
Firefighters are sick, they're developing cancer, other medical illnesses, and firefighters at the end of the day, we just want answers.
Kevin Ferrara is fighting for those answers on behalf of Dan Kaysen and his other fellow service members. He retired after serving 20 years in the Air Force, where he rose as high as Command Deputy Fire Chief at Air Combat Command Headquarters in Virginia. But after decades of putting out fires for the military, Ferrara started traveling the country to deliver urgent warnings about that firefighting foam he and others once handled daily.
They found AFFF as toxic. We were never told.
Ferrara says just like Dan Kaysen, many current and retired first responders had no idea the foam they used to help save lives may have put them at risk of losing their own.
And you call yourself a whistleblower at this point. Why have you been so public about this?
That's where I get emotional. Sorry. Firefighting is a brotherhood, and we protect each other's backs. I'll go to bat for anybody, especially my fellow firefighters, my fellow veterans. They deserve it.
Ferrara believes they deserve to know that the military was concerned about the health impacts of PFAS foam long before it took action. He showed Spotlight on America unclassified records and emails he saved over the years that showed leadership in the Air Force had concerns about PFAS in AFFF as far back as 2013, with a presentation given at one base acknowledging these chemicals may pose risks to human health. Documents uncovered by Spotlight on America show the DoD was aware these chemicals were potentially hazardous even earlier, with the DoD's own Inspector General revealing that in 2011, PFAS was added to a watch list of chemicals the military was concerned about. But despite their growing awareness, it still took the military until 2016 to take what it called aggressive steps to manage PFAS-related risks.
What makes the biggest statement out of all of these messages and reports?
Fire emergency service leadership had some sort of intel as to AFFF and its toxicity. There was environmental concerns, and we were just left in the dark up until really 15, 16 when I started swapping it out. But again, they never come out and full disclosure said, hey, AFFF, the stuff that we're using today, is toxic. It'll impact your health.
They have failed you. Is that how you see it?
Absolutely. They have failed on so many levels to protect the protectors, and they won't acknowledge it.
Congress is now leaving the military no choice. Defense Department officials who've repeatedly denied our interview requests and have declined to answer questions we've put in writing recently went head-to-head with Senate lawmakers on Capitol Hill. Deputy Assistant Secretary Richard Kidd downplayed the military's early knowledge of the potential dangers of PFAS.
Sir, the Department of Defense learned about the health hazards posed by PFAS basically at the same pace as the rest of America.
Kidd couldn't provide specifics on how many military firefighters across America may have health problems related to PFAS exposure.
It is still unclear what exposures and at what levels result in adverse health effects.
Last year, the Defense Department was forced by Congress to start blood testing active firefighters during their annual physicals to measure PFAS exposure levels. Some government studies have already documented higher levels in firefighters who use the PFAS-containing foam. But the DoD's own Inspector General recently scolded the military for not adequately tracking and analyzing its own testing. And veterans, we've learned, likely can't even get these tests because the VA's website says it doesn't recommend them to determine PFAS levels. The VA told us it is unclear what the results mean in terms of possible health effects.
It sounds like to me that VA website is out of date, and they need to get up to date with the science and up to date with the healthcare protocols and protect our veterans.
New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand has been one of the most outspoken voices in the nation when it comes to protecting service members from PFAS. In an exclusive interview, she told us the military needs to be held accountable for the damage it's done.
The Veterans Administration and the Department of Defense don't always want to pay for the health care effects of the cost of war or crises they create. And you mandated this, and you didn't know it was a cancer-causing foam, but it is. So you have to protect these service members and these veterans. You have to pay for their health care.
Does that frustrate you that you have to compel them to action all the time when this seems like their responsibility?
Well, that's been part of my job description for the last 10 years, really pushing these issues so that the DoD can be held accountable on behalf of service members. And this is something that the DoD owes to its country, but also to the service members themselves.
Service members like Dan Kaysen and Kevin Ferrara. Gillibrand is their voice on Capitol Hill. But she's also fighting for thousands of others who may not yet have made the potential connection between their health problems and their exposure to PFAS.
It makes perfect sense that with the level of exposure our service members have had over so many decades, that there are many service members and veterans who are perhaps suffering from cancers and other diseases caused by that exposure to PFAS. And so hopefully they see this show, hopefully they can begin to put two and two together and say, this exposure may well be the source of this illness that I have today, and will seek appropriate care and compensation for their health care needs.
Getting that care and compensation can be a battle. It was for Dan Kaysen. He showed us years' worth of records he compiled in his fight to prove a link between his exposure to PFAS foam and cancer. Kaysen's doctors ultimately determined that the evidence in his case indicates the foam he practically bathed in during the mid-1970s is the likely cause of his cancers.
How big of a task was it to prove this?
I don't know how I did it. If you want to call it a gift from God, I'll take it.
In 2019, that gift came in the form of this letter from the Veterans Administration. The VA formally agreed that Kason's cancers were incurred in service and awarded him 100% disability. Other military firefighters, we're told, are now using his case as an example in their own fight to prove a link between health problems and toxic PFAS foam.
Is this letter your legacy?
Never thought of it. I was really proud when that came in the mail. I'm sorry, I'm crying. Yeah, this is wonderful. But there's a lot of men and women I know that they're going to live. I'm going to die, but they're going to live. And for years to come. And I'm proud of that.